All right, guys, welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. It's our first night of the week streaming. We are back, guys. We are so back. It is a flawed man of God. I am your host, Stuart Davis. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a biblical scholar, and I haven't been to seminary. Not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm trying to do is talk to you about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about the Bible, talk about Christianity, talk about a wide variety of Christian or wide variety of topics, current events, and issues, and give you my takes on them. One that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. I've been a Christian all my life, non denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the word daily, trying to do it better day in and day out. Sometimes I'll get it right, and other times I will not. But either way, you're going to get my opinion on it as honest as possible, because how else should I do it? So if you're somebody who's interested in learning more about God, maybe establishing a relationship with Christ, learning more about who Jesus is, and maybe what Christianity is all about, perhaps there's a small voice in the back of your mind wondering if there's more to this life than just your existence here on earth. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here. Please um, turn your speakers up, pull up a chair, give me your attention for a little bit. Hopefully, I can give you some sort of insight and influence, some perspective from me. Um, One that can kind of give you an idea of what it is for the average layperson, because that's what this is all about, really. You're the average layperson trying to make sense of the faith. And if you do decide to go to church, you may run into somebody very similar to me. And hopefully this can help springboard you into a relationship with God. Tune in, ask questions, get what you can out of this, and I'll give you my best. I'll give you the best I can. For those of you who are already Christians and you just enjoy Christian topics and discussions, welcome as well. We run this very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. We just want you to be relaxed and comfortable here, able to talk about what concerns you, what we're discussing here, and you'll find that we've got a bunch of good folks who tune in night in and night out. And we want you to be part of that as well. So if you're catching this live, I highly encourage you, be part of the chat. Catch up on it. Come in with these folks as we discuss and go through what we normally do, which is just reading through the Bible. But in whatever capacity this conversation is going, I want to hear from you. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What are your opinions on things? What is it that we're discussing that gives you a particular experience, insight, or unique perspective? I want to hear from it. The community is small. And thus, if you participate in the chat, I'll read and respond to what you got to say. And that's regardless of whether you are already a Christian or just somebody who is curious. Right? And there we have it. Let's get into the show. Yeah. Guys, gals. I know it's been a while. It's been a while. But I'm glad to say that I'm here. I had a great trip. Had some fun times. And suffice it to say, for the next few weeks, I'm probably going to be pretty settled in. Pretty settled in. You don't get to just leave the house, leave your wife and some kids for a weekend out with the boys and just get away with it. No. I've got responsibilities to take care of. So what that means is I'll be spending a lot of time back here in the homestead, and you guys will make sure I will make sure as much as possible you guys are here streaming with, or you guys can catch me streaming, and we could talk. We could talk about the word of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So I had a good weekend, had a safe trip, had no traffic to deal with as soon as I got out of Philadelphia. Had a little bit of traffic getting out of Philadelphia, which is not usual for me. Usually southbound, I don't really hit much traffic coming out of Philadelphia, but look, Waze put me right on Route 301 from the beginning, and I stayed there all the way. All the way. Dropped my buddy off at the airport, headed out. Got home enough time to say goodnight to my son, and then hit the ground running for a Monday, for a Monday's worth of work. And I'm not all the way caught up yet on the travel and the staying up late. I did not. Mr. and I were both at the show this weekend on Saturday. However, because we were sitting in different route, the venue was not. The venue was nice. However, the way it was set up was not how we planned it. And Mr. could not get up down to me. I was sitting with some friends, and then Nick came up and chilled with us a little bit as right before he was set to go on stage to go participate in the show. So we had a little bit of that going on. I think Mr. was maybe a little bit late or getting to the show right when it was starting, and we just ended up missing each other. I went up onto the mezzanine to find him, but I couldn't. I didn't want to hover because I had the wrong color bracelet on, so they were going to shoo me downstairs. He couldn't come downstairs to say hi to me, and we had a full bar. It was an open bar. I mean, you had to pay for it, but so I get to miss Mr. And when he gets on, I will tell him I um, gravely regret not hanging out, not being able to say hi to him and his gal, and spending a little bit together. Maybe buying him a drink, non-alcoholic, because he doesn't drink anymore. So had softball last night. Monday nights are softball night. Had a great game, and I like having a good game. I like playing good. Look, who doesn't like having a good game? I had one error, which is actually just one error in the last 4 games for me, which is not bad. The team that we were playing was representing a church that I have significant history with. Used to be a member there, spent a decent chunk of my childhood there. I did not leave on good terms. My family did not leave there on good terms. And that was about 20 years ago. And I still have very harsh feelings, very hard feelings towards that church. One of the things that I've been trying to organize, and I haven't been good at it, is getting a stream together with myself, my good friend, or his wife, who went through a church with a serious scandal, being involved heavily involved in volunteering in a church that experienced a serious scandal and how it affected them. And perhaps Eric Rollon and or Wrath to come on about their church experiences, negative church experiences, and getting past that. Being a serious church member is not for the faint of heart. It's The way I like to describe it, a family. When you are looking for a church, you are looking for a church that teaches, preaches fundamentals. And one of the biggest, there are the fundamental of the fundamental value of loving God and obeying Him, and then the fundamental of loving your neighbor and caring for them as they are brother or sister in Christ. So when you get to that, where we're at now, when you get to that level, when you get to the age where almost all of us are at of adulthood, and you get involved in this, there are going to be times when your church may not be 100% in line with what you think is correct. A lot of folks will choose that as a time to see themselves out, not walk away. In these cases, most of the time, not walk away from faith, but maybe go to the church down the road that might be more in line with their values, more in line with their doctrine or whatever. And I can understand that to a degree. However, if we are to view this church family as a family, if you had a family member who was doing something that you didn't agree with, had a lifestyle that you thought was incorrect, would you walk away from them, or would you stick around and try to help them fix it? Now, I don't think that there's always that different situations and scenarios in that will change the answer to that question. And I don't always know I don't know what is best and what isn't. But what I feel is best and what I do is you stick around. Now, the unfortunate thing with the church in question was that, one, I was young. Two, um, what they'd ended up, their actions towards my family were one of betrayal and ostracizing, I think. I had already left that church. In fact, I was well on the way to becoming a member of my current church. Or maybe I was not well on my way in the beginning stages. But my family was still very much connected. And the actions of that church, and when I say the church, I mean some congregation members, the pastor, and the rest of the church leadership, most of it, um, did not uh, try to protect a congregational member who was struggling. And put church appearances first. It was an opportunity to shame people just for the act of making a mistake and some other things. I want to save the details. Number one, I want to talk to a specific member of my family before I go into detail on this. And number two, I want to save this for the episode that we talk about when we discuss it. But the way they handled it was shoddy. And it wasn't limited. This wasn't an isolated incident with my family, and it wasn't an isolated incident with other members of the congregation. In fact, what you'll see is a lot of folks of my generation have either run away as far as possible to a different type of church altogether, or left church or faith altogether. And to me, that is the sign of a bad church. And it is a failure of leadership. And I know that they made incorrect decisions and actions. And I'm pretty sure that they know that they made incorrect decisions and actions. And at no time has any of them ever reached out to apologize or say, is there any way we can get past this? And that last part has been the biggest obstacle for me to do what I should do, which is forgive them. In some ways, maybe I have. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of raw feelings there, even 20 years after. I'll get into that maybe one day. We were playing them, so the anticipation behind that is we're playing that church's team in softball. Now I don't actually know any of the players. Most of them looked young enough. They might have been very, very young. Or not even born when a lot of this stuff went down. They might not have, their parents may not have even been at the church. But yeah, there was some yapping and jawing. There was some strategy in playing that is generally frowned upon in our league by the other team. And it's easy for me to just shake my head and go, well, that's just them being them, right? But I don't know. I had it. We won. We won the first game by a lot. We won we were competitive in the second game. Bats were hot the whole time. Bats were hot the whole time. But and I made a couple of pretty good defensive plays. We had good defensive plays all around, but the problem was we had an umpire who's kind of not new to we'd never played with him before. And he was a nice enough guy. And he was very open at the beginning, and I liked. He goes, "Hey, you guys are going to watch your language on this field because I'll give you a warning, but if I hear the F word at all, you're gone." We're supposed to keep it clean. It's a church league, right? Very open, very affable guy. His strike zone, however, was the size of a quarter. And that's difficult. That's a difficult when you've got to come up with a tight strike zone in church league softball, it's difficult to get him in there. And it kind of it slows the game down. And two, it frustrates everybody involved. So, we've got an easy way around that. Don't worry whether it's a strike or a ball. If it's hittable, hit it. Swing and hit it. If it's not, let it go. I think we had 2 batters walk for the entirety of both games. And that's generally what the expectation is in softball. It's slow pitch softball, guys. We're men. Swing at the ball. Let's get it going. If you can't beat us with the bat, then why else are you out there? Why would you go out there to not swing the bat? We are in the field specifically to get off the field so that we can have our turn to bat. The whole thing that we all look forward to is batting. It's slow pitch softball. Again, you want to hit the ball. But they didn't want to swing. And because they knew they could get on. And I don't know if this was gamesmanship or whatever, or just the fact that they just couldn't get into the spirit of things. But that was the frustrating part. Beat it. And then they were perfectly talented enough to beat us with their bats. They got some pretty solid hits. But again, we made some pretty good plays out there defensively too. I was proud of our team. Proud of my pitcher, who's a friend of mine, good friend of mine, fellow deacon, and how he handled it. He was frustrated at first, got over it because he knew I was he knew I was in the background kicking heat maybe, I don't know. But he got through it. We won one, we lost one, which is about how we play. We're 500. We're a 500 softball team. And so that was good. A little tired this morning, late game, or just stayed up a little bit later than I should have. Should have gone to bed early. I'll try to catch up on sleep this weekend. But with that said, caught Blaine's stream, and here I am today, guys. Here I am today, happy to be back. So, Emmanuel Sorio said, let's get it. Nico's in here. Dresden is here, and good night. Matt Felty is here. Porcupine Mayhem is here. Nernaev is, I feel that. Talking about the church. I was thinking about suggesting a show with that topic. That has been one on my docket for a while, but what it requires is me to get other people on the show and having people in a mindset where they're comfortable talking about it. Even if it's not something that directly affects you, when you are deeply invested in a church, there's a lot of heart and soul that goes in it, and emotions are raw. I used the word raw earlier. There's no better way to say it. There's no better way to say it. And so you need to get people who are, I get on the internet and talk online, put my ugly mug out here and talk about my opinions. I am comfortable speaking about things. What I don't like doing is speaking for other people without really just speaking for people. I like people to explain the things on their own. Dresden, good night. And Emmanuel, hey guys, catching the replay probably because I'm going to be driving down the road in a bit. Godspeed, guys. Emmanuel, hope you can catch it. Hope you can catch as much of this live as possible, whatever. It's not a big deal. Just glad to have you guys tuning in. Interesting thing popped up that I've noticed the past 2 weeks. Remember when I said I was hovering around 430 subscribers? I'm at 452. 17 subscribers in the last 28 days. Oh, never mind. Somebody unsubscribed, so now it's 451. How dare they? How dare they? Anyway. If it was one of you guys in the chat, well played. All right. With that said, we're going to be going through, continuing our early journeys into Second Chronicles, which is the remix of First and Second Kings, with more focus on Judah. And the importance of Judah is clear. A lot of people focus on Israel, and Judah is part of Israel, but then becomes independent of Israel. But Judah specifically is noteworthy because Israel does not have a righteous ruler after Solomon. They have jackasses for the rest of the time. Evildoers, scoundrels. And while Judah has its fair share of those guys, every once in a while you'll get 1, 2, sometimes even 3 in a row of kings who can act appropriately. Just in a little way, enough to do what was right in the eyes of the Lord. He didn't do it. Not everyone did everything right, but do enough to be counted as good. And that is the difference between Judah and Israel. And because of that, Judah is allowed to exist longer than Israel because God gives Israel over to the conquerors well before Judah because they're just absolutely a mess. But eventually Judah succumbs to the same thing, much to Josiah's dismay. But much like we as people, when it comes to sin, so often we cannot get out of our own way. And while we can use the Old Testament Israelites and Judeans as punching bags, a lot of this is a look in the mirror. A lot of this is a look in the mirror. And if you haven't figured that out yet, and I think most of you have, but if you haven't figured that out yet, you will soon learn when we get to Hosea. But guys, while we're going through Chronicles and there's a lot of narrative, we have got some bangers coming up. Ezra and Nehemiah. Esther is a great, uh, short but great account. Job. Then we get into Psalms and Proverbs. Ecclesiastes. Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, some people call it. Then we get some books of prophecy, Isaiah, Jeremiah. Then there's Lamentations and Ezekiel. Daniel, great book. Hosea, yes. Hosea's going to be hard, though. It's hard, but it's good. Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah is going to be a great one. Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi as we make this this final march of largely short books of the Bible at the end towards the New Testament and the birth of Christ, his arrival. Hang on. But right now we're in Second Chronicles. And we're talking about Solomon and his temple. Solomon's temple is a wonder of the world known throughout. Place is supposed to be full of riches and a lot of legends persist out of that, talking about, you know, how did the Templars get so rich? There are theories that they found Solomon's temple. Lots of theories, lots of stories that surround it outside of the biblical accounts. But here we're going to talk about its building, its construction, and its furnishings. So let me pull up the screen and we will begin our reading. Second Chronicles chapter 3, Solomon builds the temple. Pretty straightforward. Then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. It was on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, the place provided by David. He began building on the second day of the second month in the fourth year of his reign. Now, if you remember, things are a little bit complicated. David, in his older age, there's not as much order in the kingdom And David has some men in his uh, retinue who are less than less than reputable. So Solomon has some consolidating to do. He's got to clean house. But eventually, 4 years later, he gets started on this. Notice that this is set on the threshing floor of Aranua. Let's go back to 2 Samuel. Let's see. Did I talk about it here? Well, it's in Chronicles. Hold on. I thought it was in Chronicles. Why am I not having difficulty following this? Ah, here it is. David's next mistake after his dalliance and eventual marriage to Bathsheba is one that does great harm to Israel, the nation. He takes a census outside of getting permission. He's even warned by Joab not to do this, but he does it anyway. And he, as a result, God punishes the entire nation. And he gives David the chance to basically pick the mode of destruction. And David picks the Lord because he knows that the Lord is more merciful than men. And so it happens basically in the form of a plague. Gad, the prophet, goes up to David at some point after. I mean, David is doing whatever he can. He's begging. He's begging for God to end his plague, spare his people, bring it upon him. On that day, Gad went to David and said to him, "Go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Aranua the Jebusite." And he does that. Aranua says, "Why have you come here?" David answers, "To buy your threshing floor so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague on the people may be stopped." Aranua said to David, "Let my lord the king take whatever he wishes and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offerings, and here are the threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. Your Majesty, Aranua gives all of this to the king." Aranua also said to him, "May the Lord your God accept you." But the king replied to Aranua, "No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing." So he paid him for it. And this is this is significant. Doesn't feel that way because so often um the census is overlooked. Everybody focuses on David and Bathsheba. A lot of us forget about the plague and how David makes a mistake to God that costs his people, many of his people, their lives. The foundation Solomon laid for building the temple of God was 60 cubits long and 20 cubits wide, 90 feet long and 30 feet wide, or about 27 meters long and 9 meters wide. Who cares about metric? We're not going to do that again. Using the cubit of the old standard, the portico at the front of the temple was 20 cubits long across the width of the building and 20 cubits high, so 30 feet. He overlaid the inside with pure gold. He paneled the main hall with juniper and covered it with fine gold and decorated it with palm tree and chain designs. He adorned the temple with precious stones, and the gold he used was gold of Paravaim. He overlaid the ceiling beams, door frames, walls, and doors of the temple with gold, and he carved cherubim on the walls. This is a incredibly gold endowed building. He built the most holy place, its length corresponding to the width of the temple, 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide. He overlaid the inside with 600 talents of fine gold. 23 tons of gold, guys. The gold nails weighed 50 shekels. It's a pound and a quarter. He also overlaid the upper parts with gold. A pound and a quarter pound nail. I'm sorry, a pound and a quarter nail in weight. It's amazing. Spared no expense. King Solomon, aka John Hammond here. For the most holy place, he made a pair of sculptured cherubim and overlaid them with gold. The total wingspan of the cherubim was 20 cubits, 7.5 feet. One wing of the first cherub, was 5 cubits long. Wait. One wing of the first cherub was 5 cubits. That's the 7.5 feet long and touched the temple wall, while the other wing, also 5 cubits long, touched the wing of the other cherub. Similarly, one wing of the second cherub was 5 cubits long and touched the other temple wall, and its other wing, also 5 cubits long, touched the wing of the first cherub. These wings of the cherubim extended 20 cubits. They stood on their feet facing the main hall. So with the cherubim, we see a lot of very similar decorations that we see on the Ark of the Covenant. He made the curtain of blue, purple, and crimson yarn and fine linen with cherubim worked into it. Yes, those seem to be the chosen colors of the Lord, because that's how he gets the folks to dress. For the front of the temple, he made 2 pillars, which together were 35 cubits long, each with a capital 5 cubits high. He made interwoven chains and put them on top of the pillars. He also made 100 pomegranates and attached them to the chains. He erected the pillars in the front of the temple, one to the south and one to the north. The one to the south he named Jachin, and the one to the north, Boaz. You guys are quiet tonight. The temple's furnishings. He made a bronze altar 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 10 cubits high. That is about 30 feet long, 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 15 feet high. He made the sea of cast metal, circular in shape, measuring 10 cubits from rim to rim and 5 cubits high. It took a line of 30 cubits to measure around it. Below the rim, figures of bulls encircled it, 10 to a cubit. The bulls were cast in 2 rows in one piece with the sea. The sea stood on 12 bulls, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. That's 12, by the way, guys. 12 bulls. The sea rested on top of them, and their hindquarters were toward the center. It was a handbreadth in thickness, and its rim was like the rim of a cup, like a lily blossom. It held 3,000 baths. How big is a bath? 18,000 gallons. That's quite a fish tank. He then made 10 basins for washing and placed 5 on the south side and 5 on the north. In them, the things to be used for the burnt offerings were rinsed, but the sea was to be used by the priest for washing. He made 10 gold lampstands according to the specifications for them and placed them in the temple, 5 on the south side and 5 on the north. He made 10 tables and placed them in the temple, 5 on the south side and 5 on the north. He also made 100 gold sprinkling bowls. He made the courtyard of the priests and the large court and the doors for the court and overlaid the doors with bronze. He placed the sea on the south side at the southeast corner. And Huram also made the pots and shovels and sprinkling bowls. So Huram was the artisan provided to Solomon from his ally in Tyre. Huram was supposed to be quite talented. So Huram finished the work he had undertaken for King Solomon in the temple of God. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 sets of network decorating the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 400 pomegranates for the 2 sets of network, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, decorating the bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the stands with their basins, the sea and the 12 bowls under it, the pots, shovels, meat forks, and all related articles. That reminds me, guys, I had Peruvian chicken. I ate at one of these Peruvian chicken places for the first time today. So good. So good. All of the objects that Huram-Abi made for King Solomon for the temple of the Lord were polished bronze. The king had them cast in clay molds and in the plain of the Jordan between Succoth and Zarethan. All these things that Solomon made amounted to so much that the weight of the bronze could not be calculated. Again, we're talking about a culture and a society that tries its best to calculate and record everything in as specific and as exact an amount as possible. That's a lot of bronze. To say we couldn't count it. It was more than we could undertake. Solomon also made all the furnishings that were in God's temple, the golden altar, the tables on which was the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold with their lamps to burn in front of the inner sanctuary as prescribed, the gold floral work, and lamps and tongs. They were solid gold. The pure gold wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, dishes, and censers, and the gold doors of the temple, the inner doors to the most holy place, and the doors to the main hall. And there we have it. We have now furnished the temple. We'll read this last part of it. When all the work Solomon had done for the temple of the Lord was finished, he brought in the things his father David had dedicated, the silver and gold and all the furnishings, and he placed them in the treasuries of God's temple. Just a reminder, Solomon furnished a lot of this stuff himself, not just his daddy. So there you go. Blaine's Escape Corner. Dropping a like from the theater. How's it going, Blaine? Enjoy your night off. Hope you're out on the town having a good night with the lady. Good night with the lady. And that reminds you guys, if you do enjoy this show, if you think it is worthy, if you want to see it grow, The best way to do it is start telling other people about it and like and subscribe. Like, subscribe, share. I don't need money. It's not what this is for. But what I could use, word of mouth. And there you go. So hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and participate in the chat, guys. Y'all are, like I said, y'all are quiet tonight. We're getting ready to wrap up, though. So getting ready to wrap up. And Matt says, if I ever get VR, I'll look for a recreation. It's difficult to imagine the scale and the grandeur. Exactly. I would be interested in seeing that as well. But all we've got are some scalings and some images that I can share on here. And let's see. Let's see if I can do this. I'll share the whole thing with tabs. Somebody did a model here. I think this is a great picture. Where's a good yeah, looking for a CG, a good CG rendering. And here's the picture. This is the picture that we used last time. I got you, Porcupine. I know you're not the only one. This is the kingdom. Right? This is the castle, the palace. And I believe this area right here is the temple. Freemasons community. We're not going to show that then. Here we go. This is the other one I used. Here we go. Here's the C for the priests of washing. You see the bowls on each side. 5 basins on wheels for rinsing animal parts for the burnt offerings. You know those were getting dirty. Here is that barbecue plate. Here is the barbecue joint right here. Copper altar for burnt offerings. Get some of that Peruvian dove beat on there. They've got different numbers marked out here. So one right here. So the most holy place, number one, is back here. You can see it kind of. It's a little difficult, but that's right there. They've put the Ark of the Covenant in between the cherubim, right? Then you go down the stairs, and then you've got the holy place, right? Then you've got the porch. 4 is Boaz. 5 is Jachin as these 2 pillars. There's 6. 6 is the copper altar with the stairs going down. Got the molten sea. And here we've got the basins, and on the other side, you've got basins as well. You've got dining rooms surrounding it. It's not part of this picture. And then this is all part of the inner courtyard. Very opulent. You can see there's side chambers for storage. So the 2 ornate folding doors overlaid with gold separated the holy and most holy place. recessed windows, hollow bronze pillar on north called Boaz, south was Jachin, two gold overlaid folding doors on the vestibule. Not a bad. And the dude for a little scale, yeah, and a little bit of scale right there too. Look at all those menorahs. Just pointing the menorahs out. Look at all those menorahs. Let's see if we've got another one. That was a good one, I thought. That's a good cutaway. Here's another one. I think the first one was better. I'm looking for a good CG rendering. I haven't been able to find one yet. Oh well. Oh, here's a good picture. This is like the masses gathered there, right? And here they're bringing in offerings. That's a pretty cool one. I think we lost something, but and this is near Nanthogging. I think we lost something by not having an impressive building to enter for to worship. I think it set a tone of awe for God. That is actually a quite a criticism of Catholics. The Catholics have for a lot, especially non-denominational guys. There are some pretty big opulent Lutheran churches and Anglican churches, but especially evangelical, non-denominational. You can find us meeting in a strip mall in some empty strip mall building or in these new aged uh new age churches with Starbucks in them. But I think that one of the things that Catholics do well is build opulent places of worship that really give you a sense of importance, uh, important focus on what you're there for, right? And they have, for whatever, for right or for wrong, criticized others for not doing that. Some of the Orthodox are like that as well. So there you have it. Solomon's temple was, again, it's a wonder of the world, lost to us because of the actions of Israel and Judah. They ceased to treat it as a place of reverence and worship to God, and instead perverted it into something else entirely. And they used it to worship false gods and demons, commit perverted acts, and stuff like that. Important to remember. All right, guys. Like I said, you guys know what's important. Share the stream. We'll be back on here tomorrow night. I plan on streaming the rest of the week. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Think of something for Friday. Don't know what to talk about yet. I usually try to chase headlines. So, I mean, right now, what do we got? Tucker Carlson. Uh, Apparently, there's some stuff going on with Crowder right now. That might be interesting to talk about. I don't know. If it's going to be petty and catty, I might just stay away from it. But anyway, all right, guys. Quite start off to the night, but again, like I said, real good. Real fun weekend. I hope you guys had a fun weekend. I hope you guys are going to have a very productive Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder. Something about him getting a divorce or something like that. Again, so I may very well shy away from that just because it seems like it doesn't seem like topical material or whatever. I am more interested in the Tucker Carlson thing. But we could find something better to talk about as well, I'm sure. We'll see. But with that said, guys, Matt or Nath, Porcupine, get some rest, Porcupine. Blaine, have fun into theater. Emmanuel, drive safe. Dresden, Nico, thank you guys for tuning in. Always great. Always great to see you guys. And I know it's been a few days, so we're going to make up for it with some consistent streaming, at least for this week and hopefully for next week as well. And with that said, you guys have a great night. Great night. And God bless.